everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for this session of the Pittsburgh Racial Justice Summit. This is the Pennsylvania and Illegal Convictions in Cold Courts, Innocence is Innocence session. And this panel will address how illegal convictions, aka wrongful convictions, in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is high. We're going to look at a couple aspects, a couple cases, and joining us today is our panel, Raqueeb, Ajamu-Osagbo, Orlando Fuller, Dr. Ben Barson, and Alison, Motta. So whenever you're ready, panelists, you can go ahead and take it over. We will be utilizing the chat function. Sorry, before I forget, the chat function for this session. So if you have any questions just during the presentation, go ahead and put those in the chat, and then you'll have an opportunity to speak and ask questions at the end. All right, now take it away.
Thank you so much for the introduction, and welcome to Pennsylvania, or PennCELLvania, as we are going to refer to it in this panel. Illegal convictions in cold courts, innocence is innocence. And we're here today to discuss ways forward toward the complete destruction of white supremacy, as I think many of us at this conference are, and particularly the death grip it has on the amerikkkan court system. Our panel will address the rate of what we call illegal convictions, otherwise known as wrongful convictions, and how illegal convictions in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is amongst the highest in the nation. And we will also focus on the specific illegal conviction of a politicized prisoner that's very dear and near to many of us here, including family members of this individual, Motta Ajamu-Osagbo, who has been wrongfully imprisoned since 1981. According to the Innocence Project, there may be more than 20,000 prisoners in the American prison system who are convicted of drug crimes, theft, violent crimes, and other things that they did not actually commit. The agency estimates that up to 5% in United States prisons are innocent of any wrongdoing whatsoever. And even when these folks are cleared of wrongdoing, there's often no type of compensation whatsoever for the wrongfully convicted in Pennsylvania. The ongoing trials of a Braddock man who was exonerated by DNA evidence illustrate what often befalls those who are released with no recompense. The man was sent to prison in 1981 for the murder of a McDonald's manager despite claiming his innocence, and he spent 18 years behind bars. He suffers from chronic anxiety, nightmares, and a deep fear of the justice system. With no compensation from the state for his years spent in prison, he is forced to get by on a $700 disability check and can only afford to live in a tiny apartment. Another issue related to illegal convictions is and the criminal injustice system more broadly is the phenomenon of death by incarceration. While the death penalty has come under increased scrutiny in recent years, death by incarceration is by far and away the most frequent use of capital violence by the state. According to research done by Motta, the politicized prisoner we're going to be discussing today, over 500 prisoners died behind bars this year alone in Pennsylvania. Another topic we're going to be discussing is the phenomenon of child lifers, or better put, perhaps, is child deathers. PA has the highest number of juveniles convicted to life sentences in the country. As of December 31st, the Department of Corrections reports the juvenile lifer or deather population to be 521. As you may have noticed, we are using new terminology to describe these interrelated phenomenon, to try to unmask the violence of the state. We need to create a new language. Almost the entire vocabulary used by the quote unquote criminal justice system is designed to maintain the genocidal state of affairs towards Black and brown people in this country. And that's why we need to create a new language. The goal of this workshop and this new language is the destruction of white supremacy. And a lot of the language we use is rooted in that white supremacy. For instance, discussions of race and diversity can mask the history of slavery and white oppression of non-white peoples. So a new language can create new social relations, new visions of the future. We're going to be talking about this more, and we're going to be hearing from Motta himself on this topic. And actually, I want to take now the opportunity to introduce Motta's partner and life partner and wife, Raqueeb, who's going to be describing more of this vision of how to move beyond this language of white supremacy, how to move beyond this genocidal state of affairs. And we'll also be hearing from Motta himself. I just want to mention that Raqueeb is a founder and executive director of the Black Urban Gardeners and Farmers of Pittsburgh Co-op, an urban agriculturalist and community activist. So welcome, Raqueeb.
Thank you, Ben. Welcome everyone. When I do a Zoom presentation, I like to welcome everyone, but give shout outs to people I know. My old co-mate, Victoria from work, from Grow Pittsburgh, Mr. Mel, hello, Alan, and Q. Hi, Q. It's good to see you. Thank you for, well, to see your name up there. Thank you for coming. And Brother Caleb, how are you? So new language has been introduced, will be introduced to new language. If some of you aren't familiar with it already, and you're going to hear it in Motta's words, him describing right now why we say illegal convictions instead of wrongful convictions and what the difference is. Give me a minute, I'm gonna share my screen. All right. All right, could you please explain to us the difference between illegal and wrongful convictions?
Well, wrongful conviction is the term that the system uses, the court system. It's a euphemism, it's a jargon. For those of us that know, that term is a poison term. You got no business using the term wrongful conviction, because what they're talking about is illegal activities of the prosecutor, often the prosecutor, the police, the clerks, and any other members of the court officers. They're illegal activities in order to get the conviction against the accused. And when they say wrongful, the court uses the term wrongful conviction to basically spit in our face. It's an insult, because they don't want to tell you that their officers of the court are not only breaking the law, but willfully doing so, and worse than criminals. So when you say illegal conviction, you're saying that the individuals involved broke the law in order to get the conviction against the accused. And in this instance, we're talking about children. The first crime committed against children, the worst crime, is that they didn't even acknowledge our childhood. That's first and foremost. And they did that by not, by using other euphemisms to avoid calling us children, giving us that identity that we so rightfully deserve, because the term child connotes and denotes innocence. And when you deal with children, it triggers sympathy, sensitivity, and sensibility in all matters dealing with children. And it triggers their legal rights, their international rights, their cultural rights, their economic rights, their psychological rights, their physical rights, et cetera, et cetera. So illegal conviction is the term that aptly describes the criminal conduct of the individuals involved, and most likely would like water it down and say, well, sometimes the prosecutors or the cops, they didn't do such, they didn't commit, these deliberate acts. It was an accident and so forth. All right, then we'll say that then. Then say that, describe that in your recitation. Don't avoid the fact when they break the law, calling it illegal. One of the things that they do when they say wrongful, we like to flip it on the head. If they say wrongful conviction, they try to water it down and not admit that the officers of the court actually break the law, then say it like this. The court system is they refer to it, which is another euphemism, criminal justice system. There's no justice in the court system. So using the term justice is clearly a euphemism. And then using the term criminal to say that one is a criminal, the only thing you give a criminal is what criminals deserve. So you can't be just in a system where you refer to the individuals that go through the system as criminals. That means that they're guilty before they even step in the building. If you use the term wrongful, way that the court system uses wrongful conviction. If you remove the word criminal and call it wrongfully a wrongful court system, then you would be saying that they're going into a court system that's wrongful. And really, that's what it amounts to. Wrongful convictions can only be had in a wrongful court system. And so they would never do that. They would never change the euphemism of criminal to the word wrongful and talk about wrongful court system as opposed to a criminal court system or criminal justice system or wrongful justice system. A system that gives wrongful justice. And in order for them to be consistent, that's what they would have to do. So to avoid all of that confusion, we call it exactly what it is, an illegal conviction, because the officers of the court, prosecutors, police, judges, clerks, etc., broke the law in order to get the conviction.
All right. Could you please explain to us the difference between illegal and wrongful convictions? All right. Thank you. So did anyone have any questions on that? The language and why we were using the language?
Raqueeb, I don't see any questions right now, but of course we'll have more time for questions as the panel goes on and at the end. I think now's a good time to introduce Alison, don't you think? Right on. That was really powerful. Thanks for, obviously it's difficult for us to be able to record calls with Muti, as his speech is not protected, obviously, in the same ways that those of us on the outside are. We're going to introduce now to the panel and to all of you, Alison Motta, a criminal defense attorney with the law firm of Motta and Motta in Chicago area, and who has handled Muti's first post-conviction petition in Philadelphia. Alison's going to be speaking on the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office Conviction Integrity Unit, systemic bias and racism in the justice or injustice system, and speaking on the case of Muti as well. So hi, Alison, how are you doing?
Hi, everyone. It's an honor to be here. And let me just start by talking about how I came to know Muti. First of all, I am a criminal defense attorney. I used to practice in Philadelphia before I came out here to the Chicago area. And very early on in my practice, Muti's son, Sharad, was frantically going from law office and lawyer to lawyer, trying to find someone desperately to help his father, who was, I will say, illegally, wrongfully convicted. And that new evidence had come forward. So we got involved. This is after his trial and after his direct appeal. And when people were coming forward about pressure put on by the police, information the police knew that they used to coerce illegal and accurate statements against Muti and things of that nature. So when you think about illegal convictions and wrongful convictions, Muti's case is actually a good case sort of to think about, because not only was he illegally convicted in the sense that Muti described, that the police and the state, they didn't play fair, and they knew that they weren't playing fair. And one of the things that we had noticed early on, and it's not unusual to so many cases, was that with a multiple defendant case, we sort of started with the timeline of what was the evidence that they put forward in these other defendants' cases. And in each case, the narrative, the story was dramatically different. And the evidence presented was dramatically different. And when I say evidence, I don't mean the evidence in the sense that a man was killed and what the witnesses said, the non-related witnesses. I mean the narrative behind the physical evidence, which is really where an entire criminal case comes together. It's the story behind the evidence. And that story is what convinces a jury that this makes sense. And the story that they told, they being the district attorney, the state's office, differed from defendant to defendant as far as storyline, as far as where people were before things happened, where Muti was, when people came together, where they went and what they did. And that just goes to show that the district attorney's office had no qualms about presenting a completely different story depending on when it fit their needs, which is not only goes to what Muti spoke of for illegal convictions, but in his case resulted in what I'll refer to again as an illegal wrongful conviction, meaning a man who didn't commit a crime is in the crime charged is in prison for that crime. And when we got involved in Muti's case and we presented new witness statements of police misconduct, of police corruption, police putting words in their mouth and the things that they endured as far as statements, we actually had to go in front of the judge. And this was some 20 years, I think, 15 years after he had been imprisoned already, because the police started harassing those witnesses. And the judge actually entered an order in the case once we were involved that prevented the officers from talking to any of the witnesses unless that witness approaches them or wanted to speak to the police and initiated by them. So again, and that's why I call Muti's case an illegal and wrongful, because in my nomenclature, that just means this person did not commit the crime. And when you deal with illegality in the system and prosecutors working to the ends of what they see as justice without caring about the middle, you do see that, happening in a predominantly systematically racist system. And I've seen that more, out in my practice here in Illinois as well. But it's unfortunately something that that's hard for the system to accept, that sometimes these prosecutors and sometimes these police, and I'm saying sometimes, even though I mean many times, okay, but just to stay sort of, middle of the road here, that sometimes they intentionally put words into witnesses' mouths and put on evidence that they know is not true. And for sure, tell stories, the narrative that they know is not true. In fact, in Muti's case, there was in his original trial, the prosecutor who actually, and I know someone will speak of this later, was actually convicted of his own wrongdoings, but he said on the record that, oh, there is a witness. I recognize somebody sitting in the gallery, although unbeknownst to him, somebody just magically appeared that was going to help his case. Very unusual set of circumstances. But this witness who was part of the planning of the crime for which Muti was ultimately convicted, and someone have to put in the chat if I'm supposed to give that background as well. But in any event, he testified that Muti was supposed to alert with a whistle from the parking lot because Muti was found 2.5 blocks away or 2 blocks away from the store. So Muti was charged with basically as a part of a conspiracy of a group of guys who went to rob a local store, and somebody shot and killed the clerk. And the evidence presented at trial, again, going with this individual where the state said, I just happened to notice this person, was one of the people there for the planning and more involved than maybe the evidence would have ever shown Muti was. And they found Muti, again, it was from all witness accounts, including the other people involved, he was, a block and a half or 2.5 blocks away. So this testimony at trial was that he was supposed to whistle, if police came. And I don't know how many of you people are from Philadelphia, but this is in West Philadelphia, 2 blocks away. They're inside a store, but this is the evidence that the state presented. This is the witness that they put on the stand to present it. The judge found Muti guilty because he decided that Muti's job was to scope the store. So I guess a little bit more background. Muti met up with a group of friends late in the afternoon one day who were sort of, boy talking, sounded like they were scheming something, but there was nothing really specifically said. And later that afternoon, they go down to the local store. And some of the other guys stop, they're talking to someone outside, and Muti's inside the store. Once inside the store, he sees 2 or 3 of his friends come in, hats on, faces down, and he knows, oh crap, something's about to go down. And he leaves and says, it's not cool. And he leaves. And he, again, is 1.5 blocks or 2.5 blocks. Maybe someone can correct me because I can't recall right now, away when the store owner is shot. But what the judge decided on his own, there was no witness. Again, the witness testimony was he was supposed to whistle from 2 blocks away, was that his job was to go into the store and see if it was all clear. And he decided it wasn't all clear. And that's why he said it's not cool and left. So, you're dealing with, and I tell this part of the story because I find, Muti said about using the word or not using the word criminal, and that use of the word criminal implies someone is already guilty before guilty instead of innocent until proven guilty. And it's not only state's attorneys and cops that have this mentality, but judges as well. Judges often believe that the person standing before them likely committed the offense. And here's a perfect example of, the state putting on witnesses who are making statements that they know to be untrue and are inconsistent with everything said before, that being that he was supposed to whistle from however far away happened. But the judge on his own just decided that Muti had another role, and that he met that role when he left the store. So hopefully that's enough background. But we heard about Philadelphia, having a lot of wrongful or illegal convictions, and clearly Philadelphia decided that recognized that, and they have started the Conviction Integrity Unit. Muti does actually have a case pending with that division, but I think the best way to think of it is sort of like internal affairs for the district attorney's office. They actually have a unit of the district attorney's office who are looking into people who are innocent, illegally convicted, but also what we're used to hearing as wrongfully convicted, meaning they didn't commit the offense. And many of them deal with police misconduct, false statements and false evidence, and so much of that is going on. And you heard some numbers early on about the number of those who are innocent but convicted. And you have to know that the numbers are much greater than any number that they could ever come up with, because they're not talking to, there's so many people's stories who are untold. And, as far as illegal convictions, sometimes when the police and the state's attorney decide to, you know, just put on evidence that they know is not true, or, you know, put in a little added bonus statement here, put in a little this here, just, you know, how is the truth ever to come out of that? And so illegal convictions, the way Muti puts them, I think are equally important for people to be released from. And you know, whether we had a magic ball to say whether those people were actually innocent of the offenses, you would have to assume that the more illegality in the process, the more likely the person is also actually innocent. And, you know, a lot of times, and especially in Philadelphia, where people lived and who they associated with and what they did somehow made the police so sure that they were a criminal, so sure that what they were doing was not just hanging out with their friends. But what the white police officers never seem to put together is, how do you walk down the street or go to school and not happen to make friends with someone in the family of someone the police believe to be in a gang, or the police to believe to be, you know, someone involved in some sort of criminal activity? And, you know, just punishing people because of their race and their environment. And it doesn't only end up in wrongful and illegal convictions, but it ends up in such extreme sentence disparities that the opposite, if there wasn't such racism in the system, they would look at those same factors and they would see mitigation. They would see reasons not to sentence them so much. And this is what the system still does not know. And hopefully Philadelphia will be a beacon to other big cities by starting this conviction integrity unit. I applaud Philadelphia for doing it. I'm not in Philadelphia anymore, but from what I hear from Raqueeb and from Muti, they're actually doing good work. And you'll see that the numbers of people who have been released as a result of that unit are drastically, you know, Black and brown people. And very few white people, just going to show that, you know, the disparity is across racial lines, and it goes to systemic racism that people want to close a blind eye to. And it starts with the very simple understanding of what I said before, the same factors that I would hope most people would see as mitigation, as reasons not to sentence somebody so severely, become reasons to put them away for extensive period of time, like they're lost to the world and you know, not worth saving. And I hope I covered all that I was supposed to cover.
Yeah, thank you so much, Alison. That was really informative and powerful. For those of you who are just joining us, Alison is a criminal defense attorney who has worked on Muti's case, who is a wrongfully or illegally convicted prisoner we're discussing today. I just have some comments and questions in the chat I'm going to share with you, Alison, that you're welcome to respond to. This is from Khalid Rahim. It's more of a comment, but I think it's pretty powerful. Wrongful implies that a mistake or error may have occurred, but that the intent was not to engage in something illegal. Illegal implies deliberate and willful criminal intent, which I think is an important distinction to make.
And I think she's making the exact point that Muti makes. But for me, the reason I call it illegal wrongful is because I think of wrongful as they convicted the wrong person. So, but I understand her point is exactly the point that Muti's making. And I see that completely from a societal thing. Oh, wrongful conviction, it just applies, oops, something slipped through the cracks. And that's not what's going on and I'm making figures up, but I would assume 99% of the people who are convicted but innocent, you know, convicted of a crime they did not commit, were illegally convicted in the sense that prosecutors and police officers made conscious decisions to present the evidence in an illegal manner, or to ignore evidence that could have been helpful, or to present witnesses, saying something different. So I agree that the word should be termed differently, but for me, when I use it, it's more to say they convicted the wrong person. This person did not commit an offense.
Right, exactly. Another comment from Cole Privet. That's shocking to me that the judge can get away with ruling on his own speculation like that.
I mean, it's correct. It was shocking to me as well. It was one of the issues that, we were trying to raise. And in Muti's case, the judge also said at the very end that he wished he had any flexibility in the sentencing, because at the time it was mandatory sentencing. If you're involved in a criminal conspiracy where someone ends up being killed, it's life in prison. So he had no flexibility in that. And he said that he wished he had some flexibility because even on his own speculation, as Cole puts it, Muti's role was so minor, again, a role that the judge created, but that he had no leeway and had to sentence him to life. And I believe some people later are going to talk about some of his, what's been going on since, but even the sentence that they resentenced him to, because he's a child deather, is that what we're calling them at this point? Along with the other child deathers, that his sentence was still extreme. I mean, way more than what the other people who were in the store and actually robbing the store did time-wise. I mean, he is the only one, I think, outside of the actual shooter, who I'm not even sure the actual shooter still in prison, but everyone else who was in the store and actually part of all the planning did significantly less jail time than Muti.
Yeah, thank you for that as well. Just two more comments. I just want to get everyone's voice in here. Both Tehran, this is from Alan Lewandowski, and Alan pointed out that both Tehran Jenkins and Lisa Middleman campaigned for district attorney in Pittsburgh, promising a conviction integrity unit. So just speaking to the domino effect that you were talking about earlier. And then another comment from Khalid, as if everyone with certain communities are on parole or probation. This is when you're talking about walking down the street and making friends is criminalized. As if everyone within certain communities are on parole or probation, associating with a formerly convicted person means you go to prison. So thank you so much, Alison. It's really great to have your point of view and perspective. We're gonna
Can I just add on? I'm sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
So they're all out, but several years ago, and this is probably when Alison was involved in this case, they signed affidavits that Muti didn't do this, and they're willing to do it again.
That was the new evidence I presented to the court, was the statement of all of those involved, including those pressured to lie and told that the police just didn't believe them. Like, they kept trying to explain that no, Muti just sort of came around later. He wasn't, they were not buying it. So, and maybe it's because in their minds, they were sure that they were right. And they didn't care who they had to push, pressure, or what they needed to do to get what they believed was the right words to come out of somebody's mouth. But yeah.
And the prosecutor made deals with them. These are all children, scared. And Alison mentioned earlier when she got involved that they came forward and police were detectives were harassing them, threatening them, so yeah. Thank you, Alison.
So we're going to hear now from Orlando Fuller. Orlando is Muti's great nephew, and he's actually also a software programmer, tech entrepreneur, and blockchain developer. Orlando is going to be speaking on the impact of Muti's incarceration on the family. So Orlando, great to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Ben. Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Orlando Fuller, and I'll be speaking briefly on the impact of my uncle's incarceration. Long story short, it amounts to time lost. So my uncle was convicted of a crime he did not commit and he was not involved with, and it occurred in the winter of 1981. At the time he was a child, I hadn't been born yet. In fact, my mother and father were children, and my immediate family hadn't been born yet. So I'm talking my siblings, my cousins, my nieces, my nephews. None of them were born yet. My children, none of them were born yet. This crime that he was not involved in and did not commit happened over 8 years before I was born. I have never seen my uncle free of bondage, nor has most of the family members that I've just mentioned. We're going on 40 years of the abduction of a child. Now, we do know the whereabouts here. In fact, the convicting prosecutor has since been found guilty of wrongdoings, criminal wrongdoings. Every witness has recanted their statement and agreed to sign an affidavit. And during his resentencing, the linchpin crimes were dropped. And he's done 9 years over the sentence minimum, and he's still not free. So this is why the impact on my family amounts to time lost. And that's really all I have to say. I'd like to thank everyone for coming and listening to my brief story. If you'd like to learn more or be involved, please contact me at freemuttinow@gmail.com. That's freemuttinow@gmail.com, and I'll spell it. It's FREEMUTINOW@gmail.com. Yes, thank you, Ben. So I'll give it back to Ben, and if there's questions or anything.
Thank you so much, Orlando. I think Quiba, you're going to share some media with us, right?
Yes. Okay, let me get to it. That seems to be my favorite word lately. Okay. All right. I want to first let me say, I'm showing you a picture. Let me share my screen. Apologies. Here is a picture of Muti when he was younger. Orlando, who is this? You sent me this picture some time ago. Who's that with Muti? Do you know?
Yeah, that's Motta, his friend Motta.
Okay. Oh, Vincent, that's Vincent. It sure is. So that's Vince. That's Muti. Back in the day, and this is a picture of him now. Those are the only ones that I can pull up. He's been in there 40 years and 40 years and 9 months of an illegal, and as Alison would say, wrongful conviction. But Alison talked about the Philadelphia Philadelphia's DA's office, criminal integrity unit, and we were hoping to get one in Pittsburgh, but from what I understand, Shapiro laid out money for the state that every county can have one. And last I heard, there was some folks working on that. But Muti wanted me to share with you all exonerations in Pennsylvania out of this system, out of this criminal integrity union. It's Dante Patterson. He was held hostage for 10 years. Johnny Berry for 22 years held hostage. Sean Thomas, 25 years held hostage, and he was awarded a settlement. Terrence Lewis, who has said he wanted to help Muti, 24 years held hostage. He sued and won a settlement, and he used it to start a foundation called the Terrence Lewis Foundation as well. Ron, which Don Outlaw, 26 years held hostage. He's a comrade of Muti. Theophilus Bilal Wilson, or Binky Bilal, 28 years held hostage. Thorne Abraham, who is a former DA. There was other people. Ivan Cano Sororo, 18 years held hostage. Stephen Crawford out of Dauphin County, Harrisburg, 30 years held hostage. He was awarded a settlement. His sister was the mayor of Harrisburg, the Honorable Linda Thomas. And there's also Crystal Dawn Weiner, 8 years held hostage out of Fayette County. In Allegheny County, we have a dear sister friend of mine who has helped exonerate her husband, Terrell Johnson. Tommy Doswell is from Homewood, and that was through DNA. Tommy did 18 years until he was finally exonerated. Drew Whitley, through DNA. Scott Skotsky, also out of Cambridge County. Kevin, can't pronounce his last name, Siehl, 32 years held hostage in Center County. Louis Fudge, Adams County, Barry Lathman, who was let out through DNA, and Nicole Yaris, and it goes on and on, countless right here. But I want to share with you all a video of people who have, along with Alison in Orlando, and I want to applaud Orlando for what he's doing for his great uncle. His grandmother, we call her Mama Ross, Mrs. Rosalind Payne. She has been there as constant support for Muti in over 40 years. They're 20 years apart. Even she was the midwife at his birth. You know, she practically, when I first met her, she said, that's the son I never had. And she raised him outside of the neo-Nazi camp, as we call them. And she's been a constant support, never wavering for the last 40 years. She definitely gets the honorable mention. Okay, I'm going to share a video by a comrade of Muti. We call him Comrade Q because he's from Quebec, and his name is Charles, and I'm going to share that. Bear with me, please. Share my screen. Yahoo Sasa, how are you?
I'm very good. My name is Charles Perroux. I'm a human rights activist from the province of Quebec in Canada. In my daily life, I'm a spiritual life and community engagement workshop leader. I work in elementary schools on a wide range of topics to help out teachers to enlighten the minds of the kids through mind opening and develop their critical thinking. I also used to be the activist coordinator for Amnesty International Canada Francophone for several years. And I'm still on a volunteer basis their death penalty coordinator. I've known Muti now for the past, 16 years, just about. It actually derived from my involvement in the death penalty issues, because I was very much involved around circa 2005 with the movement on Texas death row to improve the conditions, the living conditions. And throughout that, we started to reach out to some comrades in other states, some who were on death row, others who were lifers, that seemed to be very much involved to improve conditions for others. So one of the very first we got in touch with, and I was the one getting in touch with him, was Muti. Back then, I was actually teaching English in South Korea for a few years. So I remember his reaction when he got mail from South Korea. But we really meshed right from the get-go. We're very like-minded. He's a very smart individual. And at first, I wasn't quite aware of his innocence claim in his case. We were more reaching out to the activist. And very quickly, I realized I wasn't in touch with your usual comrade. We hit it off really, really quickly, and we got on a personal professional basis, as well as the reason I had contacted in the first place, and a very frequent correspondence. And so I realized about his own case very soon, and I started to help him out in various ways, to do lots of research, to contact people for him on the outs, and try to connect him with a great individual that could work on his case on a more local basis than I was back in South Korea, and then for some time in Brazil, and then back to Montreal, and now where I am in Trois-Rivières, Quebec. And I actually had the chance to meet him for his birthday in 2009, when I drove off for a few days down south, when he was in near, I think it was Outsdale at the time, in near Penn State University, in the western part of the Pennsylvania. So we actually were only able to meet for a few hours, because the next day there was an incident in the jail not related to him, and he was the whole prison block was on lockdown, so I had actually to go back home without having met him a second time. But it cemented our relationship, and ever since, for the past 12 years plus, we kept going together. Haven't been meeting him in person yet. Again, I was hoping that he would come out a few years back, and we'd actually would have been able to have a beer or something, more than being having to be behind bars with him to enjoy a few hours. But throughout the years, I've always known as Muti as someone who's been helping out others, helping out the youth, trying to get things going on the outside with movement, with projects, to improve not only conditions, but to right the wrongs that were done to mostly juveniles and young ones. And because he was himself, of course, victim of a wrongful conviction 40 years ago. It's been that long. It's totally insane, mostly since in this case, he was accused of being a lookout for robbery gone wrong, but he wasn't actually there. He was a few blocks away at the time of the robbery, after he tried and failed to convince the other guys to drop their intentions and go away. But the others made a deal with the prosecutor, and actually the actual shooter got out 20 plus years ago. That's insane. And he and another of the, I think there were 4 guys total, they actually admitted that they lied to get Muti convicted. From my knowledge, the actual judge, when at the sentencing hearing, was like, it makes no sense to sentence you to life while the actual shooter and the other guys are sentenced to less. So that's a total nonsense. It's not the first in Pennsylvania, the state with the most juvenile convictions, the hundreds. But Muti is probably one of the most outrageous you can find around, and the very fact that he's still behind bars 40 plus years later is actually insane. Mostly since the prosecutor that led to his conviction was actually convicted of corruption during the trial of Muti. So is there a link to it? It was never investigated. So there's so many elements in this case that makes this case, a poster child of wrongful convictions, that Muti needs to be out, and yesterday, not tomorrow.
Thank you.
Here we go.
Thank you, brother. All right, thanks for listening. Also, as well, give me a moment.
And Raqueeb, can I say something real quick before you play that next clip?
Of course.
So I just want to explain to you guys, because you may be asking, why are we saying the judge had no flexibility with these, you know, with Muti as far as the sentence, but these other guys are out. So Muti was charged under what's called the felony murder rule. And again, that's anytime someone is killed during the commission of a felony. But the prosecutor's office, the district attorney's office in each county, they have the flexibility to amend the charge and charge something different, such as second-degree murder, something of that nature, which would allow for a different sentencing scheme. So the prosecutors, you know, use that discretion that they have to, you know, convince people to provide them the information that they need. And Muti faced more time because all the other guys admitted their involvement, and he maintained his innocence. He said, you know, I didn't know what they were going to do until they walked into that store. So they being the state, needed these other guys and, you know, other people to provide evidence. And it was the surprise witness in the courtroom that I talked about earlier trial was also one of the guys that were in the store committing the robbery's brother, and who was promised that his brother would be out by Christmas, and his brother was out by Christmas. That's all, Reba.
Thanks. I'm gonna, yeah, I think it was 11 months he did. I'm gonna show a video of Muti's son, Sharad, who went, when Muti was kidnapped, Sharad was just a baby. Bear with me, give me a couple of seconds, please. My computer decides it wants to go slow. Okay, I'll pull this up. And it's not that long either. Just straight to the point. It's coming. All right. I'm going to share my screen. Thank you for your patience. All right. Cool. So, tell me your name and how do you know Muti? What's your current age?
42.
What age were you when your father was unjustly and illegally arrested?
About the age of 2.
All right. To your knowledge, has any court or Philadelphia's DA's office made any attempt to investigate the fraudulent testimony in your father's Muti's unlawful trial?
No.
To your knowledge, has any court or Philadelphia district attorney's office in the last 40 years made any attempt to grant him an immediate release?
No, not at all.
To your knowledge, has any courts or Philadelphia's district attorney's office made any attempt to ask for your father Muti to receive a new legal untainted trial?
No.
Do you have children?
I have 4 children.
All right. So your father Muti has been deprived by the courts and the district's attorney?
Yes, he has, for over 40 years.
Okay, how does that make you feel?
It makes me feel angry with justice system.
All right. So tell me, what is the new evidence that you found last year about your father's case concerning Prosecutor Michelson, who withheld the identity and existence of these 3 or 4 witnesses and their statements?
I discovered that
Michelson withheld evidence from the trial that would clearly acquitted or exonerated my father of all charges, and that evidence was actual witness that was in the store before, during, and after the crime was committed, and never stated anything in reference to my father as being one of the individuals involved.
All right. So, and also, have you communicated with your father's co-defendants and the ones you have communicated with? What did they say?
Well, at one point, I had an attorney go get affidavits from 3 of the individuals. The other individuals been incarcerated. And it's possible that those individuals also had affidavits asserting his innocence and how they was coerced to implement him into this crime. But recently, I spoke to a gentleman that was involved with the situation, and he said he's more than willing to help out.
Okay, wonderful. And why should they free your father, Muti?
Because he's innocent and he never committed a crime.
All right, thank you, Sherrod. And now, very quickly, you all are going to watch a video from Muti that let me exit out of this, that I recorded for a press release that we've done back in after the pandemic. So this was August of 2020. Introduce yourself.
Okay.
Introduce yourself.
My name is Motta Ajamu-Osagbo, and I am a child. Well, I was prosecuted as a child sentenced to death by incarceration. I'm currently at Neo concentration camp, Raqueeb, commonly referred to as Raqueeb State Prison. We love what we do, and we love you. My situation is, as I just said a few minutes ago, is one in which I was prosecuted. Not only was I prosecuted as a child, but I was convicted and sentenced to death by incarceration. And unfortunately, 39 years later, still here I sit innocent with the evidence in my hand. And we understand that coming out of Philadelphia and in the state of Pennsylvania, that they had no compunction or no connection to justice. In fact, their whole thing is injustice. To us, we're reaching out to the Supreme Court of the highest court in the land. Most folks think it's Supreme Court, but the truth is it's the court of public opinion. Court of public opinion, court of public truth, court of public law, court of public evidence, and finally, the court of fact.
What do you think about DA Larry Krasner?
One second, my love. I have to say this because I want specific folks to understand who is a part of the court of public opinion, public fact, public truth. We're reaching out to the United Nations, the rapport on white supremacy, the rapport on the rights of a child, torture, because the sentence of death by incarceration is in fact torture. We also reaching out to the rapport for his support Philadelphia and Pennsylvania and the United States breaking or violating the Convention of the Rights of the Child. We also reaching out to Kim Kardashian because of the work you have done and the fact that I used Kanye's song my petition in the Court of Appeals. And even though the first time they just ignored the argument, but the second time I went in, I was granted relief, and here I still sit, even though that was almost 4 years ago. I'm also reaching out to Sister Helen Pershing and Dr. Angela Davis. I'm also reaching out to Jay-Z. I'm also reaching out to Maya Moore and LeBron James. I'm also reaching out to Mike Rubin because his relationship with Meek Mill. And lastly, I'm reaching out to Rage Against the Machine. Oh, and I can't forget my girl, Cardi B. You know, press. Cardi don't need more press. Yes, you do, Cardi. You need one more press conference in Philadelphia to expose what they're doing to children, not just in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, but all over the world.
Ashe. Now, what do you think about DA Larry Krasner?
I think that he is a direct result of the seeds that we've been planting over the last 3 and 4 decades. He's doing all the right things. Even though he hasn't done the right thing in my case, I still have to commend him for the work he's done, particularly in the fact that he's exonerated 5 children who were sentenced to death by incarceration. The media won't even refer to those children, and they're all black as well.
How is Judge Janice Brinkley involved?
To be honest with you, I don't know how she got involved. She just popped up. She usurped the authority of my trial judge, PCRA, Judge Sarmina. And why is that important? Because Judge Sarmina court ordered the corrupt homicide detective Baker to stay away from my witnesses, and Janice Brinkley got in, never sent me a notice, never sent me any information about what I need to do. And because I'm pro se, or because I was pro se then, she was duty bound to do that, but she broke every law that there is in order to just roughshod, run right over me, and ignore not only Pennsylvania Supreme Court law, but the United States Supreme Court law that says that I have to be resentenced.
And who's your current judge now?
My current judge is Judge Leon Tucker.
Okay. What happened with?
One second, my love. I've asked Judge Leon Tucker to use his independent powers to investigate the corruption of my case from pre-trial, during trial, after trial, and all throughout appeals. I was denied a fair trial, a fair appeal process by all the judges and prosecutors involved.
Ashe. What happened with Judge Catherine Streeter Lewis in the ex parte document?
Oh, you pronounced that very well.
Well, thank you.
Well, yeah, you will. Well, actually, this might sound real harsh to folks, but Judge Catherine Streeter Lewis represents the worst of the worst. What we call in our community a blackface white supremacist. She withheld an ex parte document. Ex parte, for those who uninitiated, it means one-sided, basically means secret. She got an ex parte document from the chief of PCRA, Robin Godfrey. And in the ex parte document, she implicitly concedes and explicitly concedes. She implicitly concedes my actual innocence, and explicitly she admits, that my petition should be granted, my PCRA, which I assert my actual innocence. Also that my sentence should be vacated, and that the relief that I sought should be granted, and I should be resentenced immediately. That's why it's important.
Who was your trial prosecutor?
Richard Michelson, who was tried and convicted for the crimes that he committed while prosecuting my case, and I raised those issues. And to this day, everyone has ignored those issues and haven't dealt with his criminal conduct, which created what is called in the law is called a conflict of interest. It's also called the appearance of impropriety, and it's also fraud upon the court. They won't even say his name.
Wow. What role did DA Seth Williams play in your illegal conviction?
I like how you put that. Illegal conviction. His role was, I was denied a fair trial. He made sure I was denied a fair appeal process to bring those issues that I just expounded on to the light. He buried it for 7.5 years. I didn't pay him. The businessman Muhammad Ali and Michael Wise paid him. They got speed service justice. I didn't pay him. I got a slow boat to China buried under an iceberg. That's how, Seth Williams. And this is so ugly. I just found out he got out. He buried my case longer than he did time in prison. He did less than 4 years, but buried my case for 7.5 years.
Wow.
Incredible.
Why is it relevant that the case docket was deleted regarding Detective Baker's misconduct?
Well, that's relevant because the docket shows Judge Sarmina, we had 8 to 11 hearings in Judge Sarmina's court. I was represented at the time by 2 attorneys, Alison Motta and Bob Motta. She was Alison Reese back then, but now she's Motta because they got married. But I was represented by them, and we had 11 hearings in Judge Sarmina's court. And Judge Sarmina meticulously untangled my case from all of the corruption in my case and laid it out clear. And so the fact that she took all of that time, and then all of a sudden, someone in D.A. Seth Williams' district attorney's office, in conjunction with the clerk of court, they was notorious. Seth Williams had a notorious history of doing that. They altered the docket and deleted it because Judge Sarmina's court orders are actually in the docket. Because in all my appeals and all my motions, I talked about Detective Baker and his corruption. Mind you, Detective Baker was influential. His corruption was influential in the exoneration of Chester Holmes and my comrade Anthony Wright.
Did Detective Baker and his partner intimidate and threaten the witnesses?
Oh, absolutely. The T family. They threatened the T family. Once the T family came forward, did affidavits, and swore that they gave false testimony at my trial and prior to my trial, as well as was threatened by police and detectives, as well as trial prosecutor Richard Michelson. And so once they came forward and told the truth, he and his gang ran down on them and threatened them and basically terrorized them.
Tell us about your submission to the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office Conviction Integrity Unit.
Well, I submitted it when Seth Williams, as soon as he opened up the conviction integrity, well, it wasn't called, he took the word integrity out because he has an aversion to the word integrity. He called it a conviction review unit. As soon as he set it up, I filed it, which was back in 2000, I think 2013 or 14, whenever around that time. And since he has been took out handcuffs, I filed another one to his replacement, his interim DA, Kathleen Martin. And then I just recently, like maybe 7 months ago, filed one, maybe a year ago, perhaps, with Larry Krasner. They have a new version, it's 16 pages. I filled out all 16 pages and sent it in.
Recently,
yes.
right? Okay.
If you call 1 year recently, but go ahead.
Yes. If exoneration doesn't happen, are you willing to be resentenced, and why?
Well, actually, that's a good question. Actually, it's never about whether or not I want it to be. First of all, the exoneration going to happen regardless.
I'll say.
And who block it. But me wanting to be resentenced has never been an issue. The United States Supreme Court told the city of Philadelphia and the state of Pennsylvania they have to resentence me under the law. It's the new law. So that's never been an issue. The issue has been because I assert my actual innocence, they're punishing me so they don't want to resentence me. They don't want me to be resentenced so I can go out in society and fight my case, if necessary, on the street and prove my innocence.
Very good.
They can't deal with the innocence because it's too much, all of the people involved.
Is there anything else you would like the public to know?
Yes. I got a beautiful, beautiful fiance, and she got this purple dress on.
Okay. So for time's sakes,
We wanted to hear more about that purple dress.
Yeah, that sounds
well,
great.
let me tell you about this video. Because of this video, staff at Frackville ended up trolling my social media accounts, threw Muti in the hole, took away all my visits, and he was resentenced. He was resentenced because of COVID. He agreed to be resentenced. He went up for parole March of, when was it, 21? They denied him, and he goes up for parole again very soon. And we're still in a fight for him. Ashe free. And okay, thank you. We do have the room till 3:45. Thank you for bearing with us. Updates. He got his son about a month ago went to Philadelphia's DA's office to ask about the criminal integrity unit form. And they said, we need more information. And about a week and a half ago, they finally sent him more forms to fill out, but then told him he don't qualify. So right through here, we're baffled, right? And he's going to fill them out, send them in. We might even do like a call in, take a look at his form, something, I don't know. Something around the same strategy that we did with Baba Maroon when he was in solitary confinement. I'm talking to Ben working with Eco Socialist Horizon. I don't know, but we would love help. I'm going to share a Google Doc with you all right now. I'm gonna put it in the chat where you can sign up, and you can use that Google Doc to sign up. His nephew gave you his email, freemuti@gmail.com. You can get in touch with any of them there. The rest of us will put our emails in there as well. Let me see what we can do, like where we are now. And there are other legal convictions, illegal and wrongful convictions happening in Pennsylvania. And I wanted to give you all a list of resources that you can use, not just to help us with Muti's case, but other great organizations out there that are helping people. One person is on the call. He helped when Muti got thrown in the hole. Alan, thank you, Alan. I love Alan. Alan's a farmer too. He's not just an activist. Ukombozi, a friend of mine's Mama Yahuru, the insiders gave her that name. So I'm just gonna put them in the chat right now where you can help people, period. Philly Trenches, Alison's law firm, Muti wanted that to go on there, and there's emails for people. Let's Get Free, Poor Law. My girlfriend Sandra Cole runs that. She exonerated her husband after 18 years. Women Who Never Give Up. What is this? Right the Wrong Coalition by Vince, who was in a picture with Muti. He was the first exoneree in the 90s in Pennsylvania to be exonerated using DNA. So yeah, there's lots of people in there. Terrell Thomas of ACLU of Pennsylvania, he likes to help. Be a Voice, Dr. Chinchilla out of Pennsylvania. So yes, now, is there any questions, or where are we been? I'm going to mute myself.
Well, don't mute yourself yet, because the document you just shared is, unfortunately, I think you need to make it accessible to anyone who has the link, because right now, I can't get access to it. I don't think anyone will be able to. It's private, basically. So if you
Apologies.
No problem. If you might want to update that, and it's actually going to generate a new link for you, and then share that, or I can send out a Google Doc as well, if that helps.
Yes, if I share it with you, could you do that? That's my email. Thank you, Alan. I love you too. That's my email. You can email me. Was there any more comments from any of the panelists? Any questions from the audience? Ben does have a song. Ben's a musician. He's also a professor. He's actually Dr. Ben. And thank you. Oh, that's for the survey, sorry. He wanted to play a song dedicated to Muti. You still want to do it?
I do. I just want to make sure we get this Google Doc out for folks.
Okay.
Because we won't be in the same room with him probably for a while. So I'm just going to send this link out, if that's okay with you, Quiba.
That's fine.
One I just created. And
So
if you're able to put your email in, it'll be a great way for us to stay in touch with you in terms of updates about the campaign, if you want to participate in meetings and whatnot. So please open that. It's very difficult to create this conduit between Muti's voice and the public. And as Quiba mentioned, it came at personal cost to both Muti and Quiba. So if you could please take advantage of this opening that they've been able to create and be a part of this. We want to push this campaign forward. We want to get Muti exonerated, as well as so many other illegally convicted child deathers and others.
And Nuti's sister, Mama Ross, who we talked about, Orlando's grandmom, is in the audience. Did you want to say anything, Mama Ross? I don't know if she can unmute herself, but yes, she's in the audience. We'd love to give her a hand for all. Yes, I don't know if she wants to say something, but yes. Would you like to play now?
I think Alison had Devonte raised her hand, and Alison wanted to say something too. So maybe.
No, I'm good. I just wanted to make sure that it was people, like if Roz wanted to speak, she was able to unmute. I didn't know if it was the settings were allowing for that. And I already said what I was going to say.
Everyone has the ability to unmute now.
So Devonte, the floor is yours. Feel free to unmute.
Oh, okay. Can folks hear me?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So I think that peace family, my name is Devonte. Pronouns are he, him, his, or Tay. And I run a youth-led initiative working with low-income youth and like young people who have had encounters with the criminal and juvenile injustice system. And so I wonder, when we talk about when we talk about false convictions, and when we talk about these numbers, and I joined at a bit late in the conversation. I'm wondering, what does that look like for young black people, and particularly black boys, in interactions with like false convictions, and if there's any information around that.
Well, I can say, and I don't know if Quiba has more recent details, at least from the Philadelphia Integrity Conviction Unit. So at least that's telling you what the district attorney's office is able to, prove and establish. And out of the first 20 that they had released, 18 were Black males. I can't speak to the youth other than the fact that, I would consider Muti to have been a youth since he was 17 at the time of the offense. But as far as Black males, that's a significant, obviously, proportionally speaking, I think speaks volumes as to Black males being illegally, falsely convicted at numbers that can't compare to the white population.
I guess to be more emphatically clear, what is that? How does that relate? Well, not how, because it definitely does relate. Where does that relate in regards to the school to prison pipeline, and how that's already a system that disenfranchises Black youth, and especially Black youth with disabilities? And so, what are we looking around beyond the arrest for like a teacher or staff not being able to handle a young person's outburst? Beyond the arrest, what does it look like for the actual conviction? And I'm not sure if you folks have like answers for that now, but I just wanted to raise that as well.
I appreciate your comment. At one time with one of my children, they were in school and they would have them walking with their hands behind their back, going through the hallway. We had to did that. That's how it starts. And I don't have those answers for you right now, but let me say, this system wasn't designed for us to protect us. You see the disparities all across the board with us, and we hardly get justice. But that's what people on this panel, audience members who I know who are strong community activists, there's always a fight to end systems of white supremacy. But thank you for your comment. We needed to hear that.
Ben?
I just wanted to give Orlando the floor. Orlando, if you had anything else to say, just because I guess we're going to be wrapping it up soon.
Sure. I just wanted to thank everyone for coming. And again, you can reach out to me, freemuttinow@gmail.com. I'm a little under the weather, so I didn't want to do too much talking today. But thank you for the opportunity, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us. And I'm excited to see your own work, Orlando. So any other questions, comments, just, insights anyone want to share? We have some discussion in the chat happening. That's great.
Wow, that's pretty heavy, Brother Khalid. Brother Khalid's from Philly, but he lives here in Pittsburgh, Black Panther. I had no idea, but why am I surprised? Brother
And
Khalid?
that's exactly what I was sort of speaking to earlier about the things that they consider in sentencing that is somehow resulting in people being sentenced longer, such as, how they did in school, should actually be looked at society-wise as a failing of the community, and in my mind should be mitigation. And Khalid is absolutely correct. That's just like one of the factors that result in brown and Black people being outrageously over sentenced, and them considering things to sentence them stronger that should actually be looked at as a mitigating factor, as a reason to sentence them less and give them more opportunities that they didn't already have.
Nice.
I think does anyone else have any other comments or questions? Thank you again for everyone for being a part of this space on illegal convictions in Pennsylvania, and also highlighting the cause of our dear friend and comrade Motta. And he's definitely someone that has impacted me and everyone else on in our panel. He's a brilliant thinker. In addition to being wrongfully and illegally convicted and having his childhood robbed of him, he has become a really important thinker, philosopher, political theorist, and I look forward to learning more from him. And part of the theme of this panel is for us to redefine and reinvent language. So much of the language around how we talk about mass incarceration, which might be better thought of as human warehousing, is rooted in this genocidal system, this school to prison pipeline intended explicitly to maintain Black and brown people in a state of oppression, of insecurity, and of providing a source of labor as well. I'm going to conclude by performing a song that I dedicated to, and in some ways reflects the collaboration that Motta and I have had in the past few months. And I just want to ask you to bear with me. I'm recovering from COVID-19, and so I actually haven't been able to play for several weeks. So I hope it does this space it honors the space that we've collectively created. But again, I wanted just to thank everyone, Alison, Orlando, Raqueeb, and everyone who's participated in this space as we try to build a world beyond white supremacy.
Bravo.
Thank you for coming to the panel.
Great job, great job.